I hate the word routine because it's the wrong word for what we do. It's more process. It's something that's intentional. It's something that's like not involuntary at all. It's voluntary. And I'm keeping track of it as long as I go. And at the end of the shot, I actually judge the way that shot went based on how the routine was in the process, not on where the ball went. And if I'm good about the process, then I know that by the time that ball's gone, I'm still fully engaged. But when I'm voluntarily engaged in the process along the way, and then a thought comes in, like a doubt or the wind changes or something like that, it's real easy to catch when you're about to hit that anyway shot. So that's how I kind of keep myself honest and try to minimize those shots. And it's still really difficult for everybody to do that. But if you can keep it to a minimum, you're going to probably beat half the field just from that.
Hi, this is Loretta Matty from Castro Valley, California, and I play at Monarch Bay with another Golf Smarter ambassador, Jen Shaw. This is Golf Smarter number 883.
Stewart Sink. 6 PGA Tour winners reveal their mental game struggles with Kerry Valentine at the Sony Open.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, Kerry.
Aloha, Fred. It is wonderful to be here as always, and it's an honor. You are rocking this world with golf podcasts, so thank you for having me on again.
Yeah. Okay, so welcome back. Aloha. It's great to have you because each year now for, what is this, the 4th or 5th year that we've done this?
Something like that, yes.
Yeah. So you go out to the Sony Open when the PGA Tour comes to town, and you bring a little recorder with you, and you're there. It's practice day. They're out on the range. They're in the putting greens, and you stick a microphone in their face and ask them questions about it's unique questions, which I love, about their mental game.
Yes, it is. It's a blast for me and it's kind of like I'm pinching myself as I'm interviewing these guys because a lot of these guys are just amazing. They're amazing golfers and really cool people, and
But
just
they're
to have
people.
they're people, and they're I would say for the very most of them, they're very free with their time with me. We may have short kind of moments, but they're very present, and they answer the questions straight on, which is really cool.
Yeah, I did get that sense that they listen to your question and they respond to your question. It's fascinating because they do seem very present, at least the answers that you gave. Now, you interviewed 6 different people that you provided me information on. We have J.J. Spahn, Jerry Kelly, Joseph Bramlett, K.J. Choi, Aaron Rai, and Stewart Sink. And Stewart Sink gave you a lot of time. You did over 30 minutes with him. But what we're going to do is we're going to go bits and pieces here. And I think Stewart Sink, the most notable name, the most recognizable name to golfers, and he had so much to share. We're going to just pick it up right now. We'll start with Stewart Sink. And you knew about this, an anyway shot? Yes.
Stuart and I have talked quite a bit over the years. And so I in a previous interview, he talked to me about these anyway shots. So that's why I asked about them in this interview.
Yeah. So you brought it up and he responded. So let's go right now to Stewart Sink at the Sony Open 2023. With Kerry Valentine, and this is on the anyway shot.
Ever since I learned about the anyway shot philosophy, that was from a guy named Preston Waddington back about 20 years ago when I used to talk to him. And it just it crystallized in my mind that, that's basically hitting a shot when you're distracted or when you're having a doubt or a second thought or something. Anytime you're not really fully engaged to execute, it's an anyway shot. Because grandiosity tells you, like, I'm good enough to hit this anyway. It's still going to turn out good because I'm talented. I've practiced. Everything will be okay. Whatever. Those are fine philosophies, but they're not very professional philosophies. And so one of my goals for a long, long time now has been to avoid those anyway shots. And I found it more and more challenging over the years because as I'm getting close to 50 now, be 50 in May of this year, that my focus is just not as strong and sharp as it used to be, nor do I have the longevity of focus that I used to. So I have to really manage my energy. And part of that conservation of energy leads to a better chance of me having less anyway shots. This is all about recognition.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm pretty good usually at understanding the way my body signals are flashing. And if I'm fatigued or if I'm just, I don't ever feel physically tired, but if I'm mentally just a little bit like washed from too much the day before or from a lot of weeks in a row or being in contention, then I don't recognize the anyway shots as well. And those hurt me.
Is there a way that you kind of recognize it as it's happening or before it's happening, that you're learning or mastering that? Or do you also share that with your caddy? Like, if you see me do this, or do you even say a clue like to help your caddy keep you on focus?
Well, I've never said to a caddy, if you see me do this. The reason for that is that the difference in the routine leading up to the shot is imperceptible to the outsider for the most part. It all happens between the ears. And the way I would do it is more like before the shot. I like to use like verbal intentionality. And I like to tell my caddy almost in a kind of a watch this kind of a way, like I'm about to show off.
Yeah.
And there's a fine line between like arrogance and confidence. I mean, yeah, arrogance is something you have to be able to compete out here, but it's not something you need to display outwardly. You know, I don't want to be an arrogant, you know what, but at the same time, I do want to be an arrogant, you know what, when it comes to hitting my drive on the first hole or, you know, getting up and down on the last green or whatever. Arrogance is key. So I like to state my intentions, what I'm going to do, and verbally, like actually say it out loud so that, number one, it keeps me accountable. My caddy knows that I'm into the shot. And then the actual routine itself is something that's not just, I hate the word routine because it's the wrong word for what we do. It's more process. It's something that's intentional and something that's like not involuntary at all. It's voluntary. And I'm keeping track of it as long as I go. And at the end of the shot, I actually judge the way that shot went based on how the routine was in the process, not on where the ball went. And if I'm good about the process, then I know that by the time that ball's gone, that I'm still fully engaged. But when I'm voluntarily engaged in the process along the way, and then a thought comes in, like a doubt or the wind changes or something like that, it's real easy to catch when you're about to hit that anyway shot. So that's how I kind of keep myself honest and try to minimize those shots. And, you know, it's still really difficult for everybody to do that. But if you can keep it to a minimum, you're going to probably beat half the field just from that.
Is that kind of anchor or that intention, that affirmation that you do, is that something you could share? You know, what you say to yourself before you
mean like the when I like the stating the verbal intentions to my caddy? Oh no, it's not always the same. It's about the shot. Okay. It's like I'm going to take 5 yards off the 6 iron and I'm going right at that bush. Mm-hmm. You know, we've already talked about it. Like, I like this bush. He might say I think it's more post, you know, behind the green. We always pick out targets. Very rarely flag stick. Almost always something behind the green or the fairway. But I'll just verbally state my intentions, and it's usually has to do with the shot. And it's usually like I'm taking it's a full 6 right at that bush, or it's 10 yards off this 9 iron, a low punch right at the left edge of the trap. You know, that's the kind of thing I'm doing.
Yes.
And then from that point on, it's up to me to get in the process and to produce that shot. And then we'll spend a few seconds analyzing the results. Like, whoa, that played a lot longer than I thought. Or, I was a little distracted on that and I hit it anyway. So that's an anyway shot. And so, but we try not to linger too much on the judgment. We really try to create a non-judgment or a judgment-free zone out there.
So much for all of us to learn from everything he just said.
Correct. Yes.
Oh, I mean, there were so many things that were just so valuable. That's why I wanted to kick it off with that, because your intention when you're talking to these guys, you want to talk about the mental game because of what you do. But you also get into religion, which we'll do that with Stuart Sink later on, and some of the other players that you talk to. Fascinating that you also were aware that his son was his caddy last year. He's not doing it this year.
Yes.
But you talked to him a lot about his son being his caddy. I'm just going to go right to it. His son's name is Reagan, and here's what he had to say.
Curious about your relationship with Reagan in terms of him being your caddy, and because he knows you so well, did he also kind of know how to manage you on the course and even beyond the course after to help you? Because it seemed like you guys had such great success together.
We did, and I think he can point to a couple of things. So the second part of your question, how did he manage me and did he understand how to do that? I think that's something that he probably didn't know how to do until we started getting into the tournaments, because he's seen me play a lot of times, and vice versa, I've seen him play a lot. We play together at home quite often, especially during COVID. But he's never seen the nervous and the under pressure side of me as much, because at home I'm pretty relaxed, and I can, when you're in that relaxed state, you can pretty much do what you want to do with the golf ball. And out here, you have other forces that kind of affect you psychologically and emotionally, and it's a little different ball game. And I don't think there's one player that's competing in the Sony Open this week who would say otherwise. So Reagan learned how to deal with that golfer as we went. Now, going back to the first part, what was it about our relationship and how it turned into a good, successful partnership out here? I think the biggest things is that two components of any relationship got immediately wiped off the table, and that was judgment and conflict. I've obviously known Reagan since before he was born, and likewise, since he was born, he's known me. So we had this inherent trust for each other in relationship, and he's a bright kid, and he knows golf really well. His golf IQ on the course is elite, like a tour player. Now, he can't quite play golf like a tour player, but he knows the way the ball's going to bounce and react and the wind and all that stuff. He's excellent at that. Very high IQ for golf. So, and knowing that, I trusted him with his decision making, and he always has trusted me with mine. In fact, he learned a lot about how to play different shots and how to read lies and how to, strategize on the course from me, from playing with me. So it was a lot like having a little bit of myself out there caddying, and but the unconditional love that comes along with a father and son relationship and a good, healthy relationship like ours, that really did away with any of the judgment and the conflict that can be present with other caddy-player relationships. I mean, it's just a normal part of any two human beings being in a relationship. But with him and I, that part of it was not a factor. And because it wasn't a factor, it ended up being a huge factor, in our success.
Is there things that you've taken from that relationship, that experience, that maybe you hadn't had that before with a caddy, that you go, oh my gosh, as I go forward, I'm going to make sure we talk about this, or the caddy holds me up to this kind of standard or things?
One thing that I learned with Reagan myself was that I was really open and free to talk to him and tell him how I was feeling and tell him if I was afraid or tell him if I was confident or, anything. Sometimes we hide behind those things. And so with Reagan, I was never afraid to tell him how I felt. And I felt like that was a really good takeaway for me, that being outwardly verbal, I can't remember where I got the quote, but someone told me that Abraham Lincoln one time said, "A problem shared is a problem halved." That's a great quote.
Yes.
And
yes.
I just always felt like if I was feeling weird about a shot or if I was having some indecision, it was always best to get it out there and say something, and problem is halved, and it just felt like a good thing to do, and it's nothing new. I think a lot of players use that tactic, but I learned that about myself with Reagan, and so I've definitely kind of vowed to keep that going now that I've got Scott Satchnak working for me.
And I agree with you on that idea of problem shared is halved. And I think it depends on the individual with their emotional temperance as well. Like, you can just say stuff, but I think the way you are and the deep thinker, and especially I'm just assuming like with Reagan, like that actually helped relieve, I'd imagine, some of the stressor or the emotional things going on by sharing it.
Yeah, for sure. It just, you can say the same sentence in two very slightly different ways and it comes across way different. Like, let's say I was caddying for you and I felt like that the yardage we have on this one par 3 is a perfect 7-iron. I could either say, this is the perfect club, and give you the confidence to go and, like, well, I can be free on this, and this is the perfect club. Or I could say, if you hit this solid, it should be perfect. What does that tell you? That tells me, don't not hit it solid.
Right.
And the last thing you want to be thinking about on a golf shot is contact.
Right.
So both of them said the same thing, and if you asked, a bystander, they'd probably say, well, there's no difference. But the way that translates into the way a player can, like, execute that next shot matters. And when you add that up over 4 days of 72 holes of golf and a lot of shots and a lot of variety and variables out there, some shots are dead perfect set up for you, and some of them are decidedly not. It just it all adds up, to may make 4, 5, 6 shots difference out there, and that's the difference between being in contention for winning and 30th place or worse.
I don't know about you, but if he would have said to me, well, if I was your caddy, I would, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't imagine you being my caddy. That was so cool.
Yes, definitely. And it's so profound because of their relationship. I think that was really a big part of how Stewart was able to win 2 times. I was about 2 years ago. Because he's very aware of those emotions and those doubts, and he speaks about them and his relationship with Reagan to really work that out in the moment. I feel that was a big plus for his success that was going on with him.
It's incredible that he would have that kind of relationship, that open, free, he said open and free relationship of conversation with your son. And not, and let your son get your kid his 2 cents in and make, suggestions and criticism and being open to it. That's really impressive.
I agree. And it worked to be a great pairing.
Yeah. Remarkable. All right, let's take a time out. We'll be back. We've got coming up, JJ Spaun, Jerry Kelly, Joseph Bramlett, KJ Choi after the break. So, Carrie, before we get back into some more of these amazing interviews that you've done and shared with us, and I really appreciate, I don't know what else you're doing with them, but I really appreciate you letting us have them here, because most interviews that are done with these guys don't talk about the mental game. And this is such a treat to be able to have this kind of insight into what a tour player goes through, and helps us to recognize that they really have a lot of the same issues that we do out there.
It's incredible, right, Fred? From the guys that I coach, from amateur level to semi-pro to pro level, and then talking to these guys, you go, they're going through the same things, and some are willing to talk about it and deal with it more than others, and you see it. It's kind of fascinating.
Tell me about JJ Spaun.
JJ is so cool. I had the chance to meet him in kind of like his first year coming out, from the Korn Ferry Tour. And so we chatted from that point on and have had this kind of similar kind of friendly relationship that I've had with Stewart Cink. So it's just been great to talk with JJ over the years and see him, his ability and his championship qualities come out. And and just like how he has shared with me over the years, he's had to get adjusted to each level, from high school to college to the pro, and different nuances with each. But JJ is just, he wears it on his shirt, it's like, he'll tell you like it is. And he's a really cool guy.
Awesome. Well, another back and forth conversation that you had with him, talking about goals and his mental game. And here it is, JJ Spaun.
My initial goal is to win again and to put myself in contention, really, to win as much as I can. So that's the process I can really control. And then, hopefully when I'm in contention, I can pull it off. But I think we're kind of doing a good, we're off to a good start and we're doing the right things. So I'm just trying to stick to what I've been doing the last year and a half now. That's been working out nicely for me.
When you won at the Valero, was there any moments when you felt like you were in the zone, like something different was happening? Mm-hmm. And if so, what was
100%.
that?
I mean, you hear about it and you talk about it and you hear other people talking about being in the zone, and it's a weird kind of flow, I want to say, that you can't really force, because you would love to be in that all the time. But I think the thing that I noticed the most was the sense of calm I had when I was in those really high pressure situations, coming down the back nine with the lead. And I think that's what the zone is, and you kind of feel like you can't hit a bad shot or you can't hit a bad putt. So I think the hardest thing is trying to capture that, day in and day out, no matter if it's the first round or the last round. But I think that's the peak performance where you want to be in order to win and play your best.
Did you find like you did something different that week, or or something was going on differently?
Yeah, no. It's funny that you bring that up, because it's kind of like the second time this happened, which was last week, where I didn't overwork too much. I played a lot of golf leading up to that week and at Valero, and I had a week off at home, and I didn't touch a club at all in the off week, which isn't normal for me. Normally I'm working on something, but I felt so confident where my game was that I didn't really feel like I needed to. I'd rather just rest. And so we got there on Monday of the tournament. I went there with my family, and our daughter, she was a year and a half at that time, but there's a water park, so it was a big family affair.
How much you love amusement parks.
Yeah. So we were just kind of like hanging out, and I practiced a little bit here and there. I didn't even play all 18 holes in a practice round, and just kind of went in there not with any expectations, but not low expectations, but just I felt confident that I was going to have a good week. And I kind of put myself in position, after Thursday and Friday to be right there, and I didn't change. I still hung out with my family, went to the water park, and just chilled out. But and I kind of did that last week in Maui. I didn't really do too much practicing. I just played the course to see it, and my wife literally put a 5-hour time limit on my practicing so I could spend time with them in a beautiful place that we've never been to before. So and it ended up being another good week. I kind of had a chance to win, so maybe this is something that I need to try to do a little more often.
During the rounds, between on the off time, how did you feel? Was there any kind of added pressure, any things that were going on in the head, or it was kind of pretty silent?
No, I mean, I think I didn't really have the outright lead. I co-led, I think, after Saturday, and you start to hear the voices in your head speaking to you, and what could this mean to you in your career, and next week's Augusta, and you got people texting you stuff like that where it's hard to just completely shut it out. So I think the most human thing was to accept it, think about it, and just try to forget it and move on, and just stay focused on what I can control the next day. And I think I did a pretty good job of that, mentally, and I think I'll lean on that experience, as other opportunities come.
Does this has ever happened, like you're standing over a 3-foot putt and you hear like, oh man, you're going to blow this like you've done many times? How do you address that in yourself?
Well, I just like to think, like, if I'm ever nervous over a shot, especially a pretty, not simple, but a typical shot, I just like to tell myself I've done this a million times. And just because it's in a given context or situation, like, it's no different than if I was out here, by myself. It's still me in the hole and 3 feet of grass and, a ball to roll into that hole. So I think that's the best way to have, to have a perspective like that, to kind of dumb things down instead of putting too much pressure, because that ultimately can, make you a little more anxious over shots or get in your own way, and especially if you get in your own head.
Absolutely, if you get in your own head. What I absolutely loved is that you asked him about the tension of a 3-foot putt on the tour level. These guys worry about that 3-footer too. I mean, they're just golfers, man. But it's just a different level with more pressure, but they still struggle with the things that we struggle with.
For sure. Definitely. And
even the young ones.
Yeah. For sure.
The young cocky ones.
Yeah.
There's a new show that just was released on Netflix as we're talking called Full Swing. And it's like this docuseries about the PGA Tour. And I watched episode 1 last night. And it's interesting because in episode 1, it's Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas. And Jordan Spieth is talking about how good he felt going into the tournament. How, like what JJ was talking about, I was feeling good. And he had a terrible tournament. Right. So, no matter how you're feeling, you just don't know once you get onto the golf course. It's a completely different thing. Now, going to the other end of the spectrum, you talked to a youngster. Now we're going to go back to someone you had a conversation with and we shared last year with Jerry Kelly. But still, issues with the mental game, even when you're battling between whether you're going to be on the PGA Tour or on the senior tour. There's Jerry Kelly.
As the year begins, do you look back at last year and do any resetting, revision, kind of set different goals and things like that for this year?
Oh, there's no question. You have to every single year. You have to give yourself some lower goals to achieve towards the higher goals. So, I'm always looking to just win the first tournament, and then we're looking to win a major, and then we're looking to finish it off with the Schwab Cup. We start that way every single year. I mean, to culminate it, when I was on the PGA Tour, I'd say I'd want to be, number 1 in the world, which was a tall order because Tiger and I were rookies at the same time, so I'd never achieved that one. But you give yourself the low goals and the high goals so you can step your way through it.
I was curious, what are like those smaller incremental goals that keep you motivated throughout the season?
Well, right now it's just just win a tournament, just win. I mean, back in the day, you could have said, okay, secure your top 125, and then it would be a win, and then it would be. But out on the Champions Tour, that win is what I'm after every single time. So win, then win a major, win multiple times, win the Schwab Cup. That's it.
How many tournaments on the PGA side do you play a season, at this point?
I mean, usually 1, maybe 2. So always play the Sony, which this may be my swan song right here, 25th straight Sony. So, and then I'm in the Players because I won the Senior Players. So, unless we win majors, we don't get exemptions into any of the tournaments. But those are my 2 this year.
Is there a different kind of gear you play in from, like at this point, playing on the Sony, playing in this tournament versus
unfortunately,
the
yes.
champions?
Unfortunately,
what is that
yes.
like?
Well, you get more adrenaline and you try and hit it harder, and that's usually detrimental. So I need to understand my adrenaline, and I'm just finally feeling pretty good about relaxing into it rather than fighting into it. I've fought into it my entire career, but we got to try something a little different as I'm getting older.
Has there been a mental game challenge that you've seen, like maybe over last year or over the last few years, that you've overcome? And if so, how did you do that?
No, I haven't overcome any of my mental challenges. They are all still there, all very prominent, and something I work on every single day. So, that's it.
You working with a mental game coach these days? Yeah,
nope. I've been through 10 or 15 of them, and I took something from every single one of them. And at my age, it's not trying to reinvent the wheel or do anything different. It's just understanding how detrimental thought processes will affect your attitude rather than just trying to be positive through some difficult times. And everybody knows it's not easy, but that's what we all try and do. It's easier on the islands, that's for sure.
It's easier on the islands. Yeah, low stress, right? On the islands. But I really find it interesting that, you asked all these guys about their mental coaches, and none of them seem to be employed, but they all know how important the mental game is.
It's such an amazing point you just mentioned, Fred, that every golfer, right, is going to say the mental game is such a big component. And yet not everyone is willing to take themselves on and willing to really improve themselves. And it's fascinating to me that as golfers, especially at this level, will say these things and then not do anything really about it. Some, you hear like with Jerry, he's worked with different guys. But to me, if you're still having the same problems, then you haven't addressed the issue and they can be addressed. And it's only going to make your play that much better, lower your scores, feel more fulfilled, and also improve your life, as a person.
Yeah.
So these are, that's why.
He said, I deal with the mental challenges every single day.
Yeah.
Right.
And you don't need to.
No. I'm not familiar with Joseph Bramlett. What do you know about him that you can share with us before we listen to him for a little bit?
Yeah, Joseph.
On the mental game. He's going to be talking about the mental game.
Sure. Joseph is one of also those up-and-coming golfers. He had, I believe, a back issue for a number of years that took him out of the game. And he's coming back, and, in the last few tournaments, he's been up on the leaderboard here and there. So that's been exciting to see him. And also, he's biracial. So the diversity aspect for golf, I think, is really important to understand, know, and keep bringing people from around the world into the golf game.
Joseph Bramlett.
Yeah, the mental, that's what golf is. Golf really is all about the mental game. So it's a huge influence on who performs well, who doesn't, and how the leaderboard shakes out.
Does, let's say, one or two bad shots start to kind of, affect you in the mind and kind of like, to readjust and reassess? And if that does happen, what do you do to make it to like shift out of that?
Yeah, I think one of the keys to golf is being able to stay present and stay in the moment that you're in. So it sounds very cliche, but at the root of it, that's really what it's all about. So, the biggest, definitely, every one of us, when we hit bad shots, it definitely pisses us off, and we get a little fired up, and we don't like it. And you see two in a row, and you wonder if it's a pattern, but you just try to sort through them, and then figure out if there's something going on, or if it was just two loose swings, and then apply whatever you need to for the next shot. But no, that presence is really what's important.
Mm-hmm. And to have that, as well as to kind of find like that inspiration. Is there anything that you kind of pull from like during a round to kind of like keep in that inspired space? Is there thoughts that you think about?
We have all kinds of little things we pull on from the cookie jar. I've got a lot, and this has been my dream since I was 5 years old. So I've got plenty of memories and inspiration and reasons from within that motivate me to work really, really hard. And the reason I do that is to perform well out here. So if things are going poorly, or if it feels like it's not my day, you definitely have to pull from some of that and remember that you're out here for a reason. You need to get the job done.
Right, and then like that thought, like if you said, like it's not your day, well, that's that moment, right? Like you said, being in the present.
Those are fleeting thoughts. Those are fleeting thoughts that we all experience, and it's a part of everyone's game. But it's a matter of how you sort through them and how you interpret them. And yeah, it's just a thought. It doesn't make it real. But yeah, there's definitely days that you have 3 or 4 lip outs in a row, and you wonder if somebody up above is picking on you or not.
Yeah. Speaking of that, do you have particular goals or kind of plans as like, especially now starting the year, like you look back at the year past and go, okay, here's what was good, here's what was challenged, and if so, what are those things that you look to make a change for this year?
Yeah, I have little parts throughout my entire game that I'm looking to get better at, and I've got specific things to what I do that I think if I can really clean up, it can really take me to another level, and all of that is just part of my quest to get my first win out here. That's really the page I'm on right now. So the biggest goal is to get that win, and I've got a lot of smaller goals within my game that will hopefully get me there.
Stay present and be in the moment. It's, something we hear so frequently, but it's so tough to do when like he said, 2 bad shots. Is it just me, or what am I doing?
Right. And doesn't that happen to all of us?
Oh yeah.
And then the key again is turn it around and not be affected by those bad, quote unquote, bad shots, and just reassess what's the next target. That's,
Trust your swing. Trust what you're doing. Instead of questioning with every shot, don't do that. Don't go there. All right, this one we're going to go to KJ Choi. You just asked him about his mental game, and he just riffed on it. And we're going to do this one. We'll go right into a break right after this with KJ Choi.
I think my quite long and pray and then Jesus and God and thankful. And mentally, okay, watching me and practicing is more better, focus, playing a lot, and still play a lot. And the human thing in the body is a little old, but a little spread and come through and recover everything. Still tough, but. Always a younger player, little more every day in practicing, and then how much there's no change is continue playing and then practicing, and on more strong minds, and plus and then pray is a more better. It's my opinions.
Yes. So. What I'm hearing you say, you bring, due to your connection with God and your faith, you bring that into your play when you're playing, and that helps a lot for you.
Yeah, it's some tournament is not great comfortable, but some tournament is very uncomfortable. Either feeling, That's why the bad feeling is more play and then more enjoy play. Not too good today, so doesn't matter. So always God love me, and continue. People love me is because angry shot, but never showing to not angry. So why KJ not angry? So normal people say, oh, that shot is angry in a broken club and something wrong, And I never do it in the last 24 years in the PGA Tour and the Champions Tour. Many younger player and look at me, why do that? It's keep it up and practicing and then pray. So always watching you, is something wrong. It's not give you any present. It's not, and keep it up and a young player.
Going back to KJ Choi for a moment, there were times where I wasn't sure if he was saying play or pray, but then when you heard him say play, oh no, he was actually saying pray.
Yes. I didn't know that part about him, that of his deep faith, and actually that's what got him into the movie 7 Days in Utopia, and he played TKO.
And I don't know that movie. You mentioned it in the interview, but tell me about that. And he was involved in it. What was there?
It's a great golf movie. And
really?
Yes. And Lucas Black was in it as an actor, but he is also a really good golfer. And Robert Duvall was in it. And Robert Duvall plays like, the old golfer. And kind of he helps Lucas Black get back into his game, because Lucas has different anger issues, and he's trending at the PGA level in the movie, and he just he just bottoms out at one point, and then he kind of connects up with Robert Duvall about how to transform the anger and through his mental game. So it's a beautiful film and a powerful film, and I highly recommend it to any golfer. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great recommendation. Thank you. So a lot of these conversations that you have, you go from mental game into their faith and the religious belief and the strength of it and how it influences. Why do you do that?
Great question. It just happens naturally. In some cases, Fred, I don't even intend it, but it's just because the mental game, the vulnerability, that feeling of the, the darkness of the monsters, quote unquote, right? The demons. It often brings up the thoughts of our spirituality and what is really going on. And, from my perspective and from my experience of doing so much research on the mind and the mental game, not just for golfers, but for people in general, I have come to understand that the doubts are actually our friends. They're not our enemies. They're trying to help us, but they come up in the voice of the negative. It's like the good, I don't know, the good aspect, but coming out in the wolf's clothing, and it's challenging. What happens is the doubts challenge our resolve, and they're testing to see, basically, we're about to be on the doorstep of success. Are we ready and willing to really be in that space and claim it? That's why, like, I bring it up about a 3-foot putt on the 18th hole to win a championship. So many times guys hear, you're going to blow this putt. And the point of it is you're about to win. You're about to sink this putt. But if you don't understand the language of the subconscious with the conscious, then you think it's enough, right, to have a little sweaty palm, enough to just take your pre-game, pre-shot routine off for that 3-foot putt, and you lose, or you miss it and you lose. Or the guy or woman who understands this, actually, when they hear that, they laugh and they go, "Oh, I know I'm about to have success." Why? Because I just heard in my head, you're about to blow this. And I know now how to turn this around and stay calm, breathe, read the putt, sink the hole, win the championship.
Awesome. You do a lot of that part of the conversation in the next one we're going to listen to, which is a little bit longer. I'm just going to let this one go. This is just over 10 minutes. We're going to have a conversation here with Aaron Rai. Tell me about him. He's another young, hot player coming up.
For sure. What I mostly knew previously to talking with Aaron was that he has the world record for the most putts, 10-foot putts in a row.
10 feet and under.
Yeah.
World record for 10-foot and under putts in a row.
Yes.
On tour.
It was a competition.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he sunk 207 putts in a row at that. And that was like his third attempt. He told me his first attempt he got 7. Then the second attempt he got 40. And the record at that time was 136. So he blew it out of the water. So I was fascinated.
Amazing.
I was like, I got to talk to this guy.
Well, let's listen to it right now. This is Aaron Rai.
It's probably the most important aspect of the game, because we can group the mental side on how the pre-shot routine is, how calm you are over your shot, how well you visualize it, how clear you are in your mind, how you can think of the right thoughts but clear the other thoughts out of it. And that's not to mention mental game goes into how well you react to mistakes, how well you deal with adversity, how well you can ride good waves of momentum as well. And within all of those things, that's a significant part of golf. So if that part of the game can be sharp, then it can take you a long way.
I was curious, when you did your world record of, was it 207 putts of 10 feet?
Yeah.
Did you have any, kind of thoughts, if you remember back then, like of any doubts that were coming up, like, can you really do this, or things like that? And how did you overcome that, if that happened during that time?
Yeah, definitely. So that was my third attempt. My previous 2 attempts, I think on the first run I maybe made 7. Second run I think I got to about 40. And so obviously, and the world record I think was 136 at that point. So previous 2 times I didn't make it there. But then I thought, it's rather than trying to see it as me getting to 40, 80, 130, just see it in cycles of 10. And then when I got to 10, I just started again at 1 and then kept on going. So again, we're talking about the mental side of it. That just really helped to keep me quite present and not to get too far ahead, and also to keep everything very manageable, that I was never on the 137th putt to break the record. I was aware that it was the 137th putt, but it was more in my mind that it was just the 7th putt of that particular cycle. So that helped to kind of keep me in a better place mentally in order to achieve that. And then that was it really, and there were a couple of putts which looked like they were missing but went in, and you always need those good breaks here and there, whether that's in a round of golf or whether that's in a 10-foot putt. So that was pretty much some of the keys to it.
When you were in that experience, or when you have won, have you ever felt like being in what we call the zone, where things kind of like are quiet or maybe slow down, or just you enter into maybe an altered space where it seems so easy?
That's a great question. I think when a lot of players perform well, they do experience that kind of feeling, because it's almost, well, for me anyway, it's almost like nothing else is really going on outside of that present moment and that present shot. But you almost have to enter a state like that to be able to focus on all of the things you need to in order to pull off that given shot, in order to really perform. Because if any of the other things start to enter your mind and you don't use them as fuel and use them in the right way, it can very quickly derail you, and that can translate itself into a missed shot or a missed putt or a bad run of holes, which can end your chances of winning a tournament. So yeah, to answer your question, it's happened a few times. It'd be nice if that happened a little bit more, and I think we all strive for that, and we all try and do our best in order to enter that state. And that's where it's such a mix of physical and mental, because if the physical parts are in a good place, if you're well rested, you always give yourself that chance for everything to fall in line, and then the mental side can really come out because you've got a great game for it to work on top of that week. So it really is trying to take care of the whole picture, and that's a battle that I think a lot of golfers constantly face on a week-to-week basis. But when we do get it right, that feeling is pretty cool. And then when that translates into achievement or winning a tournament, then obviously that's very special.
If you ever experience any like kind of doubts when you're putting or chipping or driving, and if so, like how do you kind of address that to kind of, shift it in that sense?
It's a great question. That can happen a number of times, and it does happen to me a number of times in the past, and it will happen now, and it will happen in the future. I think for me, it sounds very cliche, but having a good routine, when I say a good routine, timing that is quite similar, where the body just falls into a bit of a flow, where those doubts can come to mind, but when you're working at a good time, everything just seems to flow a little bit better, and hopefully the body coordinates itself a little bit better to override the doubt that comes into mind. And then on top of that, just having a couple of key thoughts that are very simple within the swing, and if the doubts come to the forefront of the mind, to just try and replace those with a key thought. And I hope that between the key thought and good timing of the body, that the doubt can hopefully be overcome. And that isn't always the case, but I think that certainly gives me the best chance of overcoming those doubts, because I do have them.
Do you ever consider that the doubts are actually trying to help you succeed, and that they're coming up at a time when you're on the pinnacle of more success, either in that shot or that hole or that round, and it's just almost a test to say, we're checking to see your resolve in how much you believe in the success you're about to have?
That's a great question, and I think you're right. I think and it's in those periods where you begin to push some of your own limits, and you come through those, you learn. If you don't come through those, again, they're a great learning process. It is definitely a test of your resolve, and a test of how much you truly believe in yourself. But I also think it comes down to self-awareness as well, because there are times when doubt can actually be your friend, when you may be taking on a shot that is a little bit risky and the swing is feeling a little bit ropey, and the doubt creeps up to go, actually, what are you doing here? Let's be a little bit smarter, let's just step away from this and let's rethink. So I believe it does come back to the self-awareness, that when is that doubt actually helping you? When is it giving you a signpost to say, hey, let's step back? Or when is that doubt trying to limit you? And in both examples, they are doubts. But in one example, it's working with you. In the other example, it's not. And I think differentiating between the two requires a self-awareness. And then trying to react in the correct way then requires putting that into action. So I guess you've just got to try and read the situation and read yourself to the best of your ability.
And you beautifully explained that, I feel, because I sense that kind of mental inner talk is actually different. Those two versions of doubts.
They are.
Yes. You have a very unique cultural background. I wonder, does that help you at all playing golf? Do you pull from any of your cultural, kind of strains or history or things of that nature to, I guess, feel stronger or more confident or things like that on the course?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that is probably a natural part for most people, that we rely on some of our past experiences and how we've learned in order to try and help us in the future. And I come from the UK, but from an Indian family. Again, very cliche, but a lot of hard work in the family and discipline, and also faith in God and believing in a higher power, and things happen for a reason, and that those are some very big things which have shaped me and continue to shape me.
Yes. And have you had that kind of experience where you, let's say, you call on that faith of God or the divine when you're playing, and you felt something kind of take over in a positive way, or like kind of help you, or things like that? Has that ever happened?
Yeah, it has. Whether that is simply belief or whether that is a higher power, I think I believe in one of those two things. But yeah, I've definitely experienced that in the past. And again, it's, as we were talking about before, in terms of getting in that zone, maybe that is part of it, that it's just a feeling of peace and being at one with whatever it is that we're doing in that present moment, whether that is hitting a shot, whether that is walking down the fairway, or whether that is getting groceries from a store. These are things that are about life and peace and just the interconnectedness of all things, really. So I've definitely experienced that in the past, and I think ironically that's something that I'm trying to be a bit more wary of implementing in my life now, because it is there, but it's also something that maybe hasn't been as much in the forefront as what it was in the past for me. So it's quite interesting actually talking about this now, because it's something that I've thought of a lot over the last couple of weeks, really. Yeah, it's interesting.
He loved your questions. Clearly, he loved what you were asking him. And even when you asked him about the doubts, he laughed.
Yeah. And, I just find it fascinating because this process that I share with people, it kind of got unearthed through my own process myself, Fred. And being a musician traveling the world and performing percussion and drums, just the doubts are the same. They for a golfer, as a musician, as a business person, as a basketball player, they may say different words because of the world you're in, but the essence, I have found, it doesn't matter whether we're someone from America or someone from Japan and speak another language. Because of working with people from all over the world, I have found it's like the doubts there's a process, and it's just kind of a thing innate in all of us. And as I said, it's an exciting, beautiful thing when you look at it from the place I look at it, rather than a place of something to be afraid of or something to just try to brush over.
We're going to take another break. And when we come back, we'll finish up with more little tidbits and advice from Stuart Sink. And that's going to be right after this. Now, before we get to more of Stuart Sink, tell me about mygolfquiz.com.
Mygolfquiz.com. This is a 60-second mental game quiz that I put together. It's a very, very powerful. In this matter of 60 seconds, you will be determined on what level your golf game is at, your mental game, and then you'll get a special report based on the level of what you answer, how you answered. And in the report, there's suggestions and helpful tips. And I've gotten golfers have written back to me quite a number of times that say, Kerry, just the information in the special report has helped me, lower, my golf game, in terms of I've been able to sink putts and consecutively that I haven't been able to do before. And it's just, I love it, because I just love helping people out. I love helping golfers out. And it's, so mygolfquiz.com.
All right, please check that out. Now, let's go back to Stuart Sink, your conversation with Stuart Sink. We have 3 or 4 or so just shorter cuts with him. But the first one we're going to listen to is when you asked him about courses that he either dreads or favors.
Has there been a course that you've played that has challenged you mentally and that you almost look forward to play again because it has been a challenge for you and you've seen a success? You've overcome certain of those challenges, and you've felt that really kind of joy, of transforming that.
The early part of my career, the first couple of times I played at Memorial, which is the Columbus, Ohio, where Jack Nicklaus's tournament is, I remember my first couple of times just feeling like this course is so hard. Like around the greens, it's so penal, and just being amazed at the scores players shot there. And then over time, I started to understand how the severity of the surrounding areas around the greens was really there not to punish you, but to kind of like be your guide. And so I started seeing it differently, as opposed to being like afraid of like, what if my ball goes there? I started sort of like letting the course tell me, like, okay, you don't want your ball to be in there, so what is that saying? That's saying, let's move the target over here a little bit and take your medicine. And I saw players that I played with too have success by not taking on every flag, and that's actually the way Jack Nicklaus played golf. He designed that course exactly the way he plays golf. And so over the years, Memorial became one of my tournaments I love playing, and that I had a lot of never won it yet, but I had a lot of good success playing there. So that's definitely one example. Another example right here, Sony. Because we've been back most of us that live back east have been in, kind of marginal weather and not been able to play a lot of golf courses that have good green grass and healthy rough and wind. And this course is pretty narrow. Yes. So you come out here and you got to really be on top of your game. So it's taught me a lot about how to start the year. And also how to accept the fact that you can do all you want to prepare for a shot and hit the right club and hit your target line and everything. A lot of good drives here don't end up in the fairway. And the rough can be pretty gross here. So it kind of, I like playing here first in the year. If I'm not in Maui, obviously Maui's awesome, but if I'm not in Maui, like this year, if I'm not in the Century, then I like playing here at Sony because it takes you from like midwinter to midsummer almost right away. It gets your mental game kind of ramped up faster than playing other places.
I'll tell you, the takeaway for me on that one was don't let it punish you. Let it be your guide. How often are we like, oh, I hate this hole because I'm hitting in the water all the time. All right. If you do, let that be your guide and approach it differently. Love that.
I do too. It was beautiful what he said at that point.
Yeah. We're going to do 2 back-to-back here. The first one's going to be about the goals that he had for 2023, but then he talks about intention, and we'll follow it up with intention, not on the year, but intention for your shot. So again, Stuart Sink.
Goals and intentions are tricky because a lot of them tend to be attached to results, which, going back to what I said a second ago, you really can't control a lot of. So you like to have goals and intentions that you can control, but at the same time, what would those be? So instead of using like finishes in the FedEx Cup or making the Tour Championship or having wins like that as goals, this is something that drives my wife crazy, is that I never use those kind of things as goals, those result-oriented things. Instead, I use things more like my goal will be I have a set number of drills I do in putting, with my coach, that I kind of say, all right, I'm going to do that twice a week. And that's a goal. And I know that if I do it, it's not always the succeeding in the drills as much as it is the doing them. Just do them. If I do that set of what I said I'm going to do every week or every, whatever time frame I put on that, if I do that, then there's no chance I'm not going to improve. Because I trust that I'm working on the right things and I have good coaching. My team's excellent. So those are the kind of goals I like to use. That, maybe driver ball speed. I try to get my ball speed up to where I can cruise at a certain speed. That stuff you can control. A lot of that stuff you can't control. So when I hear players say, like, my goals this year are, I want to have at least 6 top 10s, I'm like, hey, that's great. But a lot of that just depends so much on other things, a lot of varieties or a variety of factors you can't control. So, but I think what you're asking is, does the Christmas and Thanksgiving break in the center of the season kind of give you a set to reset those goals? Yes and no. I mean, no, in the fact that I start the season back before, like in September, and I want to have a big enough data set where I can say the goals I did were either matched or they did work or I need to realign some of them. And we don't have enough tournaments under our belt yet, even though it's been a while. We've had like 8 straight weeks of no golf, so we don't have enough data points. So this time of year, you can't really do a lot of adjusting. But in my case this year, I'm about to turn 50, and so I've got the Champions Tour tournaments out there that I'll be eligible for, and I will be deciding, which ones of those I'm going to play in, and if any, which ones I'm going to play in out here. And there's a lot to play for out here on the PGA Tour, and so my goals this year are still more oriented toward PGA Tour golf.
Mm-hmm. And so you can dance back and forth between the two tours.
I could, yeah.
Yeah.
I could, but that's not really been proven to be a real successful route to go for anybody to bounce back and forth. It's been more like you got to commit one way or the other.
Yeah, it's like in a sense a different gear, because of
you play. You want your points to count.
Yes,
it's all about points. If you play on this tour and your points count, and you play on this tour the next week and your points count over here,
yes,
they're not counting both places. You could say, I hope this goes right at that bush. Probably not going to end up being a successful shot, right? Or you could say, I'm going to take this ball straight. You could kind of state, like, this is what's about to happen.
Exactly.
It leaves really no room for anything else.
Yes.
Absolutely, I choose. I'm choosing this. Yeah.
There's something very fascinating, though, when we speak that way to our mind. It's almost as then you swing and you make contact with the ball, and then it goes there.
Yeah.
It's almost
like it's predetermined.
How the heck did that happen? Right?
Yeah.
But it's due to that intention. That subconscious will support you.
When you say what you're going to do or what you're choosing to do, that's an active statement of, like, I'm in control, and you're keeping your agency.
Yes.
And I just feel like it automatically excuses you from a mistake being made. You're going to make plenty of physical errors out here. You're not going to hit all your drives and your iron shots and everything exactly like you want to. It's just not going to happen. If you can be willing to accept all those and eliminate all those other errors that you just feed yourself, like the hoping and the wishing and the needing, then yeah, you're going to give yourself a better chance to succeed. And that's in the end really what it's all about. You can't control all of, once you make contact with the ball, you can't control much else. And so our job out here, my job and that guy and all the caddies and the coaches and the players, the job really boils down to accepting the percentages and keeping your expectations in the proper frame, and then trying to improve like 1%, you know?
Yes.
1%.
Yes.
You're not trying to make every 20-footer, because then if you did that, you'd be disappointed most of the time. But you can try to make 13% of those instead of 12 and a half.
Yeah, that's
over the year. That makes sense.
I think that's a Kobe Bryant thing about 1%. Like that was something he drove
I think
himself
it was too,
to just improve a little bit each time.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing is right. I love the idea of, I don't want to make every 20-footer because then I'll be disappointed all the time when I don't.
Okay.
It's just keeping your realities in check.
I'll take that 20-footer though.
Not every time, but most of the time. He really opens up to you. I just find this so fascinating. He really enjoyed talking to you, and oh God, we enjoy eavesdropping on it.
Yeah, I do too. I just, it's kind of funny and just kind of being really candid here. I go to these events, I go to this event. I have a sense of who I'd like to interview. But I have no idea if any of those are going to happen or how it's going to happen. And I've seen my own doubts through this process, just trying to get interviews. And it's like, the voice says, dude, you're not going to get anybody. And, you're going to, it's not going to happen here. And I go, oh, thank you. I turn it around. Oh, that means this is going to work out great. And then there's a process that I've shared a little bit here today to how to deal with it. And it turns out I generally, when I look back at the list of the guys I want to interview, and then after the events, my time there is over, it's like, oh yeah, I got just about everyone that I was looking for, and yet I can't force that to happen, but I can intentionalize it. And that's a powerful thing.
Amazing. You know what? I'm going to take one more break, and then we're going to come back. We got 3 or 4 more from Stuart Sink, and we'll be back after this. This week on Golf Smarter Mulligans is part 2 with Catherine Roberts of Yoga for Golfers. In this episode, Catherine provides a variety of pre- and post-shot round stretching routines that are specifically designed for golfers. She even provides a story that may be all too familiar with some of our greatest fears.
I had a client, his name was Jim, and he was 67 years old. He had retired. His whole life was golf. And he had back pain that was so bad he could not play, and the doctor told him, forget it, you're never going to play golf again. So you can imagine he became very depressed. His social structure kind of fell apart because his life was playing golf. And so he was referred to me by someone, and I just did some very simple evaluations, physical evaluations, and I said, Jim, here are 7 to 10 things I want you to do 4 days a week, 15 minutes, no more. Don't even do more. And in 3 months, he was back playing golf.
That's Golf Smarter Mulligans, episode 199, part 2 with Catherine Roberts of Yoga for Golfers. Please subscribe for free to our sister podcast that revisits the best of the Golf Smarter podcast called Golf Smarter Mulligans, being released every Friday from wherever you're listening right now. One of the last things that you and Stuart talked about, there's a couple more topics here, but one of them is about debriefing. It's like, we talk about post-shot routine, post-round routine, or debriefing. This is the conversation you had with him about that. It's quick, but it's fascinating.
One thing I've started doing, and I started this about 5 years ago, is whenever I have those little debriefs like that, which is, I'd say anywhere from like a formal debrief, like with Reagan caddying, to very informal, just like thinking about it when I'm in the shower. Right. But I always try to take little notes down, and so in my yardage book, I always have it written down, a little list of things in the back of my yardage book, like right there, and just little things like where do you get your piece? Like it's a question that we all have to kind of ask ourselves, and very few really ever do, but if I'm standing over a drive and I feel the wind blowing a certain direction, the shot feels uncomfortable, am I getting my piece from where that golf ball goes? I hope not. but that's real easy to do. And so little notes like that, just reminding myself to look at the cross and remember like the people standing around the cross, the crucifixion might have been thinking this is like one of the worst things that's ever happened. How can this be? How can God allow this? But what they didn't realize is that they were looking at the greatest thing that's ever happened towards the redemption of mankind. Things like that. Like, oh, how can this ball bounce right into the bunker? Maybe I need to practice my fairway bunker shots. But that's one way that I kind of keep myself reminded. And it's not completely, foolproof. I mean, there's a reason I have to debrief every day.
And we all should ask ourselves, and very few do. Wise.
Yeah. And yet if we do, when we start doing it, it's only going to improve. It's kind of like the pus, right? Like of an infection. If we go after that pus and let it, when we pop it, it gets a little messy, but then, we apply whatever we need to after that on the pus and the infection goes away and it heals up. It's a similar kind of idea, it's touching the pus. So the things we don't want to do, but my question is, would you rather deal with that, or would you rather have the same consecutive challenge keep coming after you day after day, year after year? That's a question each of us has to ask.
One of the things that came out in that last cut was his faith and the importance of it. And, like you mentioned, you were a professional musician, but you bring it back to music and he takes it back to his faith.
Do you use music as a way to kind of get you revved up at all?
Oh my gosh, I use music as a way to get my heart in the right place, mainly. Not revved up. If anything, revved down.
Yeah.
I'm already revved up, and usually the reason I'm revved up is because I'm like hoping for results, or maybe a little bit fearful about what might happen. And so I have a great playlist of Christian music that I listen to all the time. It's just such a solid reminder of gratitude and where my heart ought to be, and how significant I really am out here playing golf. I sometimes overinflate my significance out here, like I think we all do.
I interpret that as when you feel that connection to the divine or God. Like I imagine like there's that oneness that golf is sort of the way in that moment for you to make that connection.
Yeah. Webb Simpson's wife one time told Lisa when we played together something like, "It's great the boys get to worship together today." And this is at least 10 or 12 years ago. And from that point on, I remember thinking, you know what? This is a way to worship, because I understand that golf, being the golfer that I am and playing at these high levels, it's teaching me things about myself that I would have never known otherwise. And it's just such an opportunity to be grateful and to like learn about yourself and to keep yourself in the right perspective, with your relationship with God. And so she said it great. And ever since then, I've treated it that way. Yeah. I notice that when I don't treat it that way, I'm not near as happy on the course. Yes. And I want to be happy. I love playing golf, and I love what golf offers me. It's way more than just a job for me, because I'm just so fortunate and blessed that I can do this job. It's such a fun thing to do, and such a personally challenging job to continue to, try to do every year. But such a blessing too, that I get to do something that's taught me so much.
People feel it, and I watched it just today, watching you just walking the course of, and just how you are with people. And I'm sure they are feeling that too. They may not understand it, but they would feel it.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the purpose out here. I worked with a guy for a couple years back about 5 years ago, and he kind of had put me through like his curriculum. Jim Murphy was his name. And one of the things that he had me do right at the beginning is to define a purpose. And I think I probably don't need to explain to you, but it wasn't my purpose to shoot 65 every day. And we kind of defined the purpose for me. And I got it straight from the lyric of one of the songs I like to listen to. And it was like, my purpose was to let this world know me by your love, meaning the love of Jesus Christ. Yeah. I want the world to see me and say, like, there's something about that guy. And when they investigate that, I want them to see Jesus Christ and his love I want the love for him that I feel to overflow and to get onto the other people that are near me. That, I think, is what you see if you watch me play. I like volunteers, you know? Yeah, there's some moments when the volunteers are annoying, but who isn't? I'm sure I annoy the volunteers sometimes too. But no, I just like to, I like to try to be that way out there all the time, and that purpose has been something that I try to walk with every day, and it seems to kind of lessen the bad scores, and also it kind of lessens the good scores too, which is kind of good for me. You know, I like to stay even and not get too up or too down, and if there's credit due ever, you know, I like to usually use it as worship.
The Church of Golf. He's an evangelistic golfer.
Yeah.
I love that idea of overinflate our own significance. And for professional athletes who've been praised and followed and clawed at for most of their lives, especially if they're elite athletes early on, I'm sure that most professional athletes overinflate their own significance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And keeping it in perspective has got to be really hard.
For sure. But that humility and that driving humility can create that the honest passion to keep improving and you know, help you stay humble.
Right. Now, you couldn't hold back. You still needed to ask about his mental coaches because you might be looking for gigs. I don't know. But you're asking Stuart Sink about his mental coaches. Let's see what he has to say.
The last guy I worked with was that guy, Jim Murphy. I worked with him. He has a curriculum that I kind of outran the curriculum, and we stayed together longer than his curriculum lasted. So when we stopped working, there's a guy that he was here too. You may have seen him if you were here yesterday, James Siekman. He's the guy I work with on short game and putting, and he is like really strong in that area too, but he's not really a fully trained sports psychologist. But he's really good for me because he knows me real well, and he knows where I get wayward, and he knows where I'm really sharp and good. So he's a good reminder all the time, asking me questions, and he kind of parrots back the questions that I have for myself, and he knows my lists. So I kind of have given some of that to him just to more as a reminder of past, you know, material that I've learned.
Interestingly, James Siekman has been on Golf Smarter. Back in 2015, episode 486, he had just come out with a book, and so we had him on. So I know of his work. Comment?
Yeah, I'm
definitely. Say anything about it?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that podcast out for that part for sure. And
don't know if it's still available for free on,
right.
Because the episodes that disappear, that's in like the 486 is kind of out of the realm of where we are. And we're getting up into the 300s now with mulligans. So if there's only 250 or so episodes available on iTunes, I don't know, or at Apple Podcasts, I don't know if that's available, but it will be at some point. We'll bring it back. And maybe we'll even find James Siekman and bring him back on the show.
Yeah.
Let's wrap it up here with Stuart Sink. One more with him. And I loved the fact that you asked him about if he had any advice for amateur play and for amateurs on dealing with doubt.
I remember about my third or fourth year on tour, I had some early success. Like I came out of the gates, like boom, and I'm like, now what do I do? And I felt like a lot of worry, because I didn't feel like I was quite ready to jump into that role yet of a top player in the world, and making all the Ryder Cups and President Cup teams. And I had to do some searching, and that's why I really actually kind of got interested in the whole psychology of sport. So, and then it's just rode a wave ever since then. Sometimes the doubts and the fears are strong, and I have to really work really hard. And as I've gotten older, I probably matured out of some of them, and I don't sweat what I used to sweat, but I do sweat things I didn't used to sweat. So I wouldn't say it's lessened, but it's just a constant, it's a moving target a little bit. But that's part of the reason I love playing, is because I'm always having to, it's like whack-a-mole.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what would you suggest for, let's say, the weekend golfer to help their mental game stay strong?
Just depends on the player, and that's a sorry answer, but the expectation level is usually not where it ought to be. Sometimes players have low expectations and they shouldn't. They should have like some high expectations, you know? And then a lot of times it's the other way around, but it just depends on what you want out of golf.
It just depends what you want out of golf. You can raise your expectations. It's okay. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Please do, actually.
Exactly. Talk about championYIG.com.
Sure. ChampionYIG.com is my website to check out about the mental game and focus a lot on golfers, but also other athletes too. So if this has been interesting for you, check it out. Let me know what you think.
It's been interesting for me, Carrie. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you sharing this, you going out and doing it, first of all, but then you sharing it with us. We pretty much have an exclusive on this content. And I hope you get to use it some other place, just not another podcast, please. Okay.
For sure.
We briefly talked about last year, you were getting involved in this project where you were narrating some audiobooks, and I remember the name Kobe Bryant coming up. What's happened with that?
Well, I'd love to share about with Kobe as well as some of the other books that have happened.
Really?
Yes. It's unbelievably exciting for me, just personally, to be part of these projects. What's happened is St. Martin Press is publishing a series of books called Life Lessons from a Legend. And Kobe's was the first one. And so I've been given, I guess, the great opportunity to narrate and produce the audiobook version of the book. Stuart Sink talking about 1%, that's a Kobe thing. He was all after just improving a little bit each and every day. But, you know, it was just like when Kobe was playing, everyone knew where to find him on the basketball court, you know, wherever he practiced. If you knew Kobe, that's where you'd find him. He was just constantly, you know, improving himself. And you know, when asked about all of his championships and what was really how he wanted to be looked at as his legacy, you know, and this was before the unfortunate passing of him, he was saying, no, it's not about the championships that I want people to remember. I want people to remember that you have the ability to improve. And if you go after that, and again, this 1%, a little bit each and every day, you're going to get to where you want to go. And that really touched me. And his book was profound. I didn't expect it to be as deeply moving to me personally, but it was. And it's really takes a huge arc from his beginnings, his time growing up in Italy, coming back to the States, you know, joining the Lakers, and the whole history of his journey, the event that happened in Colorado, and him, you know, that really shifted his life. And there was what I got from the book. It was like that moment, he really realized his actions matter. His actions affect people. And he almost lost his relationship with his wife. But he got to a point, Fred, which I just love, is that he was like, hey, I got to fight for this relationship, just like, I don't know the exact piece, but it was a classical piano piece by heart. While he was on the road playing, like to show to his wife, like, I made a mistake and I'm sorry, but you are my person. And, you know, it's an incredible thing to what he did and who he was. And so I was, as I said, very touched to do this audiobook. And then the cool thing with this series, I've also been able to interview the authors of each book, and I'll share what the books are in a moment here, and to hear about their mental process and like what it was like for these authors to write the books on these guys and what kind of research they did and how they decided on what to include and what not to include.
Amazing. And what other books?
All right. So the next one was on Michael Jordan.
Wow.
And then the third one came out last year on LeBron called Life Lessons from the King. And I'm super excited this year, later in the year, 2 books are going to be coming out. One on Tom Brady called Brady, Life Lessons from a Legend. And then the next one at the end of the year will be on Steph Curry. And, and just, the ability to just, be in the studio recording these books and really thinking about these guys is, again, human beings. I just love the mental game on all areas. So it comes into my thinking and realize the challenges, like LeBron, when I forget what it was, 4th grade, his mom just was, unfortunately in a financial situation, moving from one place to another. He missed a ton of days in school that year. And then the basketball people in that community saw him and said, we got to help this guy and, get him focused. And they did. And it was when he was in 5th grade, he was starting to coach the younger players and, and just the humanity of what, we often think of these people as just, they're athletes, they're stars, they're, they're just amazing. And the reality is they're human beings and they go through the same challenges. And then I question, Steph Curry right now, the challenges he has faced, the injuries and, and the team, the Warriors to come back and to, and to have that faith, have that belief, Klay Thompson after being down for so long. It wasn't pretty. He talks about it, how dark it was at times, in terms of his doubts, his mental game. So I just think there's so much to be taken from as golfers about all these other great athletes to glean to improve, our game of golf.
Incredible. So you didn't have any input on the content of those books. You just did the audio. You did the narration.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Again, they all sound amazing. And I just want to say thank you once again. This has been a very long episode, but very productive and insightful. Carrie, thanks so much again for coming back on the show.
My joy, Fred. Aloha. And thank you for having me.
Say goodbye to my dog because she's clearly wanting to get out of here. She's had enough of this.
That's why I had to leave earlier because we started to have a rainstorm. My dog was outside. So I was like, uh-oh, I got to get her in.
Thanks again. Just loved having you back.
Same here. Many, many blessings, Fred. Let's stay in touch. And I applaud you for your success and continuity of commitment to all this. So right on, brother.
As I mentioned during our conversation, I've been watching Full Swing, the Netflix docuseries that takes an inside look at various players on the PGA Tour. I'm really enjoying it and was definitely intrigued with the second episode that focuses on a struggling Brooks Koepka. Congratulations are in order because it is really great television. What I truly loved about this episode is that we get an inside portrait of a broken man, one who has lost his game because of injury and mental fatigue and is trying and failing to find it again. I found it so relatable for all of us to learn from, as we did in today's show, that as good as these guys are, they still struggle with the same kind of issues we have, obviously just at a different level. There are 8 episodes in the series, and last night I watched as PGA Tour everyman Joel Damon insists that he's not good enough to win a major and isn't driven by being on top of the tour. Well, he caught my eye last year because he wears big brim hats most of the time. I even reached out to him last year to discuss why he doesn't wear baseball caps, but never heard from him, probably because he was being followed by a film crew. So anyway, check it out. Let me know what you think of Full Swing. It's on Netflix. I want to thank Loretta Maddie of Castro Valley here in the Bay Area. As she mentioned, she was turned on to Golf Smarter from another ambassador we heard from, Jen Shaw. Now, because they're both in the Bay Area, as am I, we have plans to play together this spring, and I'm really looking forward to it. Loretta has selected to receive a glove and glove storage compartment from redroostergolf.com, the unique glove subscription service that offers many styles of gloves in 26 sizes. You too can win a Golf Smarter gift and have a choice of which you'd prefer, and here's all you have to do. Just send me an email, golfsmarterpodcast@gmail.com, and request our simple instructions to leave a voicemail at the toll-free line. And when you do, you can choose a dozen balls with the Golf Smarter logo from Odin Golf, the golf brand that sponsors and pays everyday golfers. These tour quality balls are a fraction of the price of what you usually pay, and when you use the code GolfSmarter at checkout, you'll receive an additional 20% off your order. Their link is in today's show notes. Now, you don't have to pick the balls. You can also have the option to receive a private online link to Tony Manzoni's video of the Lost Fundamental. And your third choice is that new glove and glove storage compartment from redroostergolf.com. So please send an email and I'll get back to you with some instructions of what to do and what to say. Just write to golfsmarterpodcast@gmail.com. And if you have any questions or comments about the content or what you've heard or what you'd like to hear, please click on that Hey Fred button when you visit golfsmarter.com.